I still remember how the paper sounded when she slammed it onto the table. That sharp slap of expensive cardstock against mahogany. My sister Elaine always had a flair for the dramatic, especially when she wanted money. "Cover Mom's renovation," she demanded, not asked. Her voice carried across the restaurant, turning heads at nearby tables. I felt my cheeks burn as she pushed the $38,000 bill toward me like I was some kind of family ATM. It was supposed to be a simple lunch, just the two of us reconnecting after months of limited contact. Elaine had suggested Marcello's, this upscale Italian place where a glass of wine costs more than most people's lunch. I should have known something was up. "Excuse me?" I managed, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. The pasta suddenly looked unappetizing. "Mom needs her kitchen redone." "The contractor starts next week," Elaine continued, tapping her manicured nail against the estimate. "She wants new cabinets, marble countertops, the works." I set my fork down slowly, trying to process what was happening. Our mother lived in the same house we grew up in, a beautiful colonial with a kitchen that had been remodeled just 5 years ago. When Dad passed away 3 years back, I'd offered to help her downsize, but Mom had insisted she was comfortable there. "Why does she need a new kitchen?" I asked, genuinely confused. "And why are you bringing this to me during lunch?" Elaine sighed dramatically, like I was being deliberately obtuse. "Because it's outdated, Sarah, and because you're the one with money to spare." That stung. Yes, my tech startup had done well. After years of 80-hour weeks and sacrificed weekends, we'd finally been acquired last year. I wasn't ultra-wealthy, but I was comfortable. Elaine, meanwhile, had bounced between jobs, always finding reasons why each one wasn't fulfilling her potential. "Did Mom ask for this renovation?" I pressed. "She mentioned wanting to update some things," Elaine said vaguely, taking a long sip of her Chardonnay, "that I was paying for." The server approached to refill our water glasses, hovering awkwardly as he sensed the tension. Elaine flashed him her practiced smile, the one she'd perfected as homecoming queen 15 years ago. I thanked him quietly as he retreated. "Look," I said, lowering my voice. "I'm happy to help Mom with things she needs, but $38,000 for a kitchen renovation she didn't explicitly ask for seems excessive." Elaine's smile tightened. "God, Sarah. It's always about the money with you, isn't it? You'd think after your big success, you'd be more generous, especially with family." There it was, the familiar guilt trip, the implication that my success somehow obligated me to fund everyone else's wants. I'd heard variations of this since the acquisition news made the local business journal. "That's not fair," I said, keeping my voice level despite the anger bubbling in my chest. "I've helped plenty. I covered Mom's property taxes last year. I paid off her car." "While living your fabulous life in your downtown condo," Elaine cut in. "Some of us have stayed close to home, you know. Some of us see Mom every week, not just on holidays." That hit a nerve. My job had taken me to the city, about an hour from our hometown. I visited Mom at least twice a month, called her almost daily. But in Elaine's narrative, I was the absent daughter who'd abandoned family for career. "I see Mom regularly," I said. "And we talk all the time. In fact, we spoke yesterday, and she didn't mention any renovation." Elaine rolled her eyes. "Because she doesn't want to burden you. She knows how busy you are." The way she said busy, like my work was some frivolous hobby rather than the career I'd built from nothing, made my blood pressure spike. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. "I'm going to talk to Mom about this myself," I said firmly. "Of course you are," Elaine scoffed. "Always needing to verify to control everything. Why can't you just trust me for once?" The server returned with our entrees, placing them down with practiced precision. I waited until he was out of earshot before responding. "This isn't about trust, Elaine. It's about $38,000. "It's about family," she countered, her voice rising again. "It's about taking care of our mother, who sacrificed everything for us." More heads turned. A couple at the next table exchanged uncomfortable glances. Lower your voice, I said quietly. Why? Embarrassed that people might see how selfish you've become? She wasn't even trying to keep her voice down now. Success has changed you, Sarah. You've forgotten where you came from. Something in me snapped then. Years of being the responsible one, of fielding requests disguised as family obligations, of being made to feel guilty for my hard work. It all crystallized in that moment. Oh, so she's just my mom now? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm inside me. Funny how that works. When it's about showing up to help her with doctor's appointments or fixing things around the house, she's our mom. But when it's about paying for a luxury renovation, suddenly she's my responsibility. Elaine's eyes widened slightly. I rarely pushed back this directly. That's not what Isn't it? I cut her off. You present me with a $38,000 bill for a renovation Mom hasn't even asked for, and I'm supposed to just write a check, no questions asked. You're being dramatic, Elaine said, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She'd expected me to cave, as I often had in the past. I reached for my phone, maintaining eye contact as I unlocked it and opened my banking app. Elaine's expression shifted, a smile starting to form. She thought she'd won. Fine, I said. I'll make a transfer right now. Thank you, she said, the words coming out awkward and stiff, like she wasn't used to saying them. Mom will be so grateful. I nodded, my fingers moving over the screen. I'm sure she will be. But first, I'm calling her. What? Why? Elaine's smile faltered. To confirm this is what she wants, of course. I hit the call button and put the phone on speaker. Mom picked up on the third ring. Sarah? Is everything okay? You usually don't call during work hours. Everything's fine, Mom. I'm having lunch with Elaine. Oh, that's nice. Mom sounded genuinely pleased. It's been a while since you two spent time together. Yes, it has, I agreed, watching Elaine shift uncomfortably in her seat. Mom, Elaine just showed me an estimate for renovating your kitchen, for $38,000. There was a pause on the line. My kitchen? Why would I renovate my kitchen? Elaine's face drained of color. That's what I was wondering, I said calmly. The estimate shows marble countertops, custom cabinets. Good heavens, Mom laughed. My kitchen is perfectly fine, dear. I just had it painted last spring, remember? You helped me pick the color. I watched Elaine's expression sour as she realized her plan was unraveling. That's what I thought, I said. Elaine seemed very concerned about it, though. Elaine? Mom sounded confused. Is she there with you? Yes, we're having lunch. She's right here. Elaine, honey. Mom's voice crackled through the speaker. What's this about my kitchen? Elaine shot me a venomous look before forcing cheerfulness into her voice. Just thinking about the future, Mom. You mentioned the cabinets were looking a bit worn, and I thought, my cabinets are fine, Mom interrupted, uncharacteristically firm. And if I did want them replaced, I certainly wouldn't expect Sarah to pay $38,000 for it. I raised you both better than that. I could almost see Mom shaking her head through the phone. Elaine's cheeks flushed red. Not with embarrassment, I realized, but with anger. We'll talk about this later, Elaine hissed at me, then raised her voice for Mom's benefit. It was just an idea, Mom. No big deal. Mom said, clearly unconvinced. Well, since I have you both, why don't we plan Sunday dinner this weekend? It's been too long since we've all sat down together. That sounds lovely, Mom, I said. I'll bring dessert. Perfect. I'll make pot roast. Mom paused. And Elaine, honey? If you're concerned about my kitchen, you're welcome to come help me organize the pantry. It could use a good cleaning. I bit back a smile as Elaine's jaw tightened. Sure, Mom, she said tightly. We said our goodbyes and I ended the call. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Well, I finally said, that clears that up. You had no right. Elaine seethed, her voice low and dangerous. You made me look like a fool. You did that yourself, I replied, surprising myself with my calmness. What was the plan here, Elaine? Get me to pay for a renovation Mom doesn't want or need, then pocket the difference? You're unbelievable, she spat. Always thinking the worst of me. Am I wrong? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she grabbed her purse and stood abruptly. I don't have to sit here and be accused like this. Some sister you turned out to be. I watched her storm away, leaving me with 2 half-eaten meals and the curious stares of the other diners. The familiar weight of guilt started to settle on my shoulders, the reflex response I'd developed over years of keeping the peace in our family. But then I looked down at the renovation estimate still lying on the table. Picking it up, I examined it more closely. The contractor's name at the top was unfamiliar, but the phone number wasn't. It belonged to Greg, Elaine's on-again, off-again boyfriend who'd started a construction business last year. The itemized costs were astronomical, $4,200 for basic cabinets that should cost half that, labor charges that made no sense. The server approached cautiously. Is everything all right, ma'am? Will your sister be returning? No, I don't think so, I said, forcing a smile. Could I get the check, please? And a box for this food. As I waited, I found myself scrolling through my recent text messages with Mom. There was no mention of any kitchen renovation, no hints of dissatisfaction with her current setup. Instead, our conversations were filled with updates about her garden club, questions about my work, and photos of her new bird feeder. The check arrived and I winced at the total. Elaine had ordered the most expensive wine on the menu and hadn't touched her $40 risotto. Classic Elaine, making a scene and leaving me with the bill, literally and figuratively. I paid, boxed up the food, and left, my mind racing. In my car, I sat for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed with a text from Elaine. Hope you're happy. Mom called me crying about how we're fighting again. This is on you. I knew it wasn't true. Mom wasn't a crier, and she certainly wouldn't blame me for questioning such an outlandish request. This was Elaine's attempt to regain the upper hand, to push my guilt buttons. A year ago, it would have worked. Today, something felt different. Instead of responding, I called Mom back. Sarah? She answered quickly. Is everything okay with you and your sister? She seemed upset when we talked. I'm fine, Mom, I assured her. But I'm worried about Elaine. She tried to get me to pay $38,000 for a renovation you never asked for. Mom sighed deeply. Your sister has always struggled with boundaries and money. You know that. I did know. Growing up, Elaine was the one who borrowed from Mom's purse, who maxed out her first credit card within a month of receiving it, who always had a dramatic financial crisis that required immediate rescue. Has she asked you for money recently? I inquired gently. A telling pause. She mentioned having some trouble with rent last month. I gave her what I could. My heart sank. Mom's pension was modest. How much, Mom? Just $2,000, she said, her voice small. She promised to pay it back when she gets her commission check. Elaine worked in real estate, or at least she had been the last time we spoke about her career. Her commissions were as reliable as her relationships, which is to say, not at all. Mom, I wish you told me. You do so much already, dear, and she's my daughter too. I want to help when I can. The guilt in her voice made my chest tighten. Mom had always tried to balance her attention and resources between us, even when Elaine demanded far more than her share. I understand, I said, but please, talk to me before giving her large sums again. I'm worried she's taking advantage. Mom didn't deny it, which told me everything. I'll see you Sunday, she said instead. Drive safely. I ended the call feeling a strange mix of anger and resolution. This pattern had gone on too long. Elaine taking, Mom giving until it hurt, me stepping in to fill the gaps while Elaine resented my interference. Something needed to change. Back at my apartment, I found another text from Elaine. "Since you're so concerned about money, you should know I already promised Mom the renovation. The contractor needs a deposit by tomorrow. $8,700. Don't make me look bad." I stared at the message, understanding washing over me. This wasn't just about a kitchen renovation. This was about Elaine making promises she couldn't keep, then expecting me to fulfill them to save her reputation. How many times had this happened before? How many times had I enabled it? My phone rang, a video call from Elaine. Bracing myself, I answered. Her face filled the screen, makeup slightly smudged, eyes narrowed. "Did you get my message?" "I did. And are you going to help or not?" I took a deep breath. "Elaine, there is no renovation. Mom doesn't want one, doesn't need one, and I just confirmed that with her directly." "God, you're impossible," she spat. "Fine. The truth is, Greg and I are starting a design-build business. We need capital. The kitchen was going to be our first project, something for Mom and a launch for us. Win-win. Except Mom doesn't want her kitchen renovated," I pointed out. "And you are asking me to invest $38,000 in your boyfriend's business without being honest about it." "It's not an investment. It's family helping family," Elaine countered. "You have the money. What's the big deal?" That phrase again. What's the big deal? As if my hard-earned savings were community property, as if I owed it to her simply for existing. "The big deal is you lied," I said firmly, "to me and to Mom. If you want to start a business with Greg, write a business plan and seek investors properly." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Like you'd ever invest in anything I do. You've always thought you were better than me." "That's not true," I said, though part of me wondered if she genuinely believed it. "I've supported you countless times, Elaine. Remember when I paid your rent for 3 months while you were between jobs? Or when I covered the deposit on your car?" "Ancient history," she dismissed. "Look, I need this, Sarah. Greg and I have put everything into planning this business. The deposit is due tomorrow." "To whom? Greg? Your boyfriend who mysteriously owns the construction company you're launching together?" Her silence confirmed my suspicion. "Elaine, I'm not giving you $8,700 or $38,000 for a fake renovation. That's final." "Fine," she said, her voice eerily calm. "Then I'll have to tell Mom I can't help with her medical bills after all." My blood ran cold. "What medical bills?" "Oh, didn't she tell you?" Elaine's expression was all faux concern now. "Mom's insurance denied coverage for her knee procedure. She needs $12,000. I promised her I'd help, but without the business launch, I just can't." My mind raced. Mom had mentioned knee pain, but no pending surgery. She was religious about her annual checkups, and her Medicare plan was comprehensive. This didn't add up. "When was this procedure scheduled?" I asked. "Next month," Elaine said quickly. Too quickly. "Which hospital?" "Memorial, obviously," she snapped. "Where she always goes." I nodded slowly, pretending to consider. "I'll tell you what. I'll call Dr. Lambert tomorrow and arrange to pay for Mom's procedure directly. No need for you to be the middleman." Dr. Lambert had been Mom's physician for 20 years. If there was a knee procedure scheduled, he'd know. Elaine's face fell, then quickly rearranged itself into indignation. "You don't trust me at all, do you?" "Should I?" I asked simply. She glared at me through the screen. "You know what? Forget it. Forget all of it. I'll figure it out myself like I always have to do." "Elaine, no, really. Message received, Sarah. Loud and clear. You have the money to help, but choose not to. Because you think you're so much better than the rest of us." "That's not what's happening here, and you know it," I said, frustration building. "You're trying to manipulate me, and it's not going to work this time." "This time?" she echoed, her eyes flashing. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done being your ATM, I said, the words flowing now that the dam had broken. I love you, Elaine. You're my sister. But this has to stop. The lies, the guilt trips, using Mom as leverage, all of it. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could almost see the wheels turning behind her eyes, searching for another angle, another pressure point. Then her expression hardened. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. When Mom needs help, when I'm struggling, you'll remember this moment and feel ashamed. I shook my head. No, Elaine. I think this is the first time I won't feel ashamed, because I'm finally setting a boundary. Boundaries. She spat the word like it tasted bad. That's therapist talk. We're family. There aren't supposed to be boundaries in family. Especially when it comes to my bank account, right? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. You know what? I was going to pay you back, she said, though we both knew it wasn't true. Every penny, once the business took off. With what collateral? What business plan? What experience does Greg even have in construction? I pressed. She flushed. Not everyone needs a fancy degree or investor pitch deck to succeed, Sarah. Some of us work with our hands. Greg was a bartender 3 months ago, I reminded her gently. Before that, he was selling timeshares. Before that, cryptocurrency. People change. They grow, she insisted. Why can't you just believe in me for once? The plaintive note in her voice nearly worked its old magic on me. Nearly. But then I remembered the renovation estimate with its inflated numbers, the lie about Mom's needs, the attempted guilt trip with fake medical bills. I do believe in you, Elaine, I said carefully. I believe you're smart and capable when you apply yourself. I just don't believe this particular venture with Greg is legitimate or well-planned. Whatever, she muttered. I should have known better than to ask Miss Perfect for help. I let the barb slide. If you want to discuss a proper business loan with realistic terms, I'm open to that conversation, but no more handouts disguised as family emergencies. Keep your money, she snapped. I don't need it. With that, she ended the call abruptly. I stared at my dark phone screen, waiting for the familiar wash of guilt and second-guessing. But instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. My phone pinged with a notification, a group text from Elaine to me, Mom, our Aunt Susan, and our cousin Pete. Heartbroken today. Asked Sarah for help with Mom's kitchen renovation. Doctor recommended for Mom's mobility issues, and she refused. Guess some people forget family once they make it big. If anyone can contribute to help Mom, please let me know. Every little bit helps. I stared at the message in disbelief. This was a new low, even for Elaine. Publicly shaming me while continuing to lie about Mom's needs. Before I could respond, another notification appeared. A private payment request from Elaine through Venmo. A $1,700 for Mom's kitchen deposit. Last chance. The audacity was almost admirable. Almost. I opened my banking app, my fingers moving decisively across the screen. At 8:12 a.m. tomorrow, there would indeed be a transfer, but not to Elaine or Greg. I set up an automatic payment to Mom's account with a memo. For safekeeping, love you. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of notifications. 3 missed calls from Elaine, 2 voicemails, and several texts growing increasingly irate. Did you send the deposit? Greg is waiting. Sarah, this is serious. Answer your phone. The last one came in just 5 minutes ago. I know you're awake. Stop ignoring me. I checked the time. 8:17 a.m. The transfer to Mom's account had gone through 5 minutes ago. I hadn't told Elaine I was sending money anywhere, but she seemed to expect I'd cave overnight. That had been our pattern. She pushed. I resisted initially, then ultimately gave in to keep the peace. Not this time. I sat up in bed, sipping my morning coffee, while considering how to proceed. My phone lit up with a call from Mom. "Sarah?" Mom's voice was puzzled when I answered. "Did you send me money this morning?" "I did," I confirmed. "Just a little something to help out. Keep it in your account for when you need it." "That's very generous, honey, but it's quite a lot," she said. "Is everything okay? This isn't about yesterday, is it?" I hesitated. Mom had always tried to stay neutral in conflicts between Elaine and me, often to her own detriment. She hated when we fought, as she put it, though most of our conflicts involved Elaine taking and me eventually setting boundaries. "Partially," I admitted. "I wanted to make sure you had a safety net. Elaine mentioned you've been helping her financially." Mom sighed. "She shouldn't have told you that." "Why not? We're family. If you need help, I want to know." "I don't want to be a burden," Mom said, her voice small. "And I don't want to come between you girls." "You're not a burden, Mom," I assured her. "But I need you to promise me something. If Elaine asks for more money, please talk to me first. I'm concerned about some of the stories she's been telling." "What stories?" Mom asked, suddenly alert. I treaded carefully. "She implied you needed knee surgery that insurance wouldn't cover. Is that true?" "Surgery?" Mom sounded genuinely confused. "My knee gets stiff sometimes, but Dr. Lambert just recommended physical therapy. I've gone twice. Insurance covers it completely." Just as I suspected. "Mom, I think Elaine might be dealing with some financial issues she's not being forthright about." "Oh dear," Mom murmured. She did mention she and Greg were having trouble with their rent. I gave her what I could. I bit my tongue to keep from expressing my frustration. Greg owned a motorcycle, the latest iPhone, and designer clothes, yet somehow couldn't pay rent. "Mom, the money I sent is for you," I emphasized. "Not for Elaine or Greg. Please keep it in your account." "Of course," she agreed, though I detected hesitation. "But if your sister truly needs help, then she can come to me directly and honestly," I finished firmly. "No more stories about renovations you don't want or surgeries you don't need." Mom was quiet for a moment. "She's always been like this, hasn't she? Even as a little girl. Remember when she told the neighbors I was sick so they'd give her cookies to cheer me up?" I did remember. Elaine had been 7, me 9. She'd collected sympathy cookies from half the neighborhood before Mrs. Abernathy called to check on Mom's pneumonia. "She's not a little girl anymore," I said gently. "And these aren't cookies. She tried to get $38,000 from me using your name." "I'll speak to her," Mom promised, her voice firmer now. "This has gone too far." After saying goodbye, I checked my phone to find 3 more missed calls from Elaine and another text. Mom just called me. "What did you tell her? You're trying to turn her against me now?" I was composing a response when my phone rang again. Elaine. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "How dare you?" she hissed without preamble. "Going behind my back to Mom like that." "I didn't go behind anyone's back," I replied calmly. "Mom called me because I transferred money to her account, not yours or Greg's." "That money was for the deposit," she nearly shouted. "Greg is waiting at the supplier's office right now." "For materials for a renovation that isn't happening," I pointed out. "Elaine, stop. The lies have to stop. I talked to Mom. There's no knee surgery. There's no doctor-recommended kitchen remodel." "You don't know everything," she spat. "Just because you talk to Mom twice a month doesn't mean you understand what she needs." "I understand she doesn't need to be used as leverage in your schemes." Silence stretched between us, taut and dangerous. "You've always been jealous of my relationship with Mom," Elaine finally said, her voice eerily calm. "That's what this is really about." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Jealous? Of what exactly? The way you ask her for money? The way you make up stories about her needs to manipulate others? That's not a relationship, Elaine. That's exploitation. How dare you? She repeated, but there was less conviction now. I love Mom. Everything I do is for family. If that were true, you wouldn't lie to family, I countered. You wouldn't try to trick me into giving you money for a fake renovation. You wouldn't make up a surgery Mom doesn't need. Fine, she said after a moment. You want the truth? Greg and I are in trouble. We owe money to some people. Serious people. The business was our way out. My stomach dropped. What kind of trouble? Does it matter? We need help, and you have the means to help but choose not to. Some sister you are. What kind of trouble, Elaine? I pressed. She exhaled sharply. Greg invested in a business opportunity that didn't pan out. We owed $22,000, and they're not the kind of people who take IOUs. What business opportunity? I asked, already suspecting the answer. A crypto thing, she mumbled. It was supposed to triple our money in a month. Of course, Greg's get-rich-quick schemes had burned Elaine before, yet she kept going back for more. So you lied about Mom needing a renovation to pay off Greg's gambling debts, I summarized flatly. It wasn't gambling, she protested. It was an investment. In an unregistered cryptocurrency that promised impossible returns. That's gambling, Elaine. Whatever. The point is, we need help. Real help. I thought if I framed it as something for Mom, you'd be more willing. At least she was being honest now. That was manipulative and wrong, I said firmly. If you'd come to me directly and explained the situation, we might have found a solution together. Would you have helped? She challenged. I don't know, I admitted. But I definitely won't help now, not after all the lies. Great. Thanks for nothing. Her voice cracked slightly. I'll just tell these guys we can't pay. I'm sure they'll understand. The emotional blackmail was so transparent it was almost comical. Almost. Elaine, I said slowly, if you're truly in danger, call the police. If this is just another manipulation tactic, stop now. You've crossed a line. It's real, she insisted. We borrowed money from Greg's cousin Tony. He's connected, if you know what I mean. I didn't believe her. Connected sounded like something from a movie Elaine had watched, not reality. But on the slim chance she was telling the truth. Here's what we're going to do, I said decisively. I'll meet you and Greg at Mom's house this afternoon. If what you're saying is true, we'll figure it out together. All of us, honestly. No more lies. Why at Mom's? Elaine asked suspiciously. Because I want the three of us to talk, with Mom present. If we're making decisions as a family, let's actually do it as a family. Fine, she agreed after a pause. 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock, I confirmed. After hanging up, I sat back and considered my next move. If Elaine was telling the truth, a big if, then she and Greg might genuinely need help. Not $38,000 worth of help, and certainly not through a fake renovation scheme, but help nonetheless. More likely, this was just another story, another attempt to extract money through guilt and fear. The dangerous people angle was new, though, and concerning in its escalation. I spent the morning working remotely, trying to focus on my actual job rather than Elaine's drama. At noon, I received a text from Mom. Elaine says you're coming over at 4. Should I make snacks? My mother, ever the hostess, even for difficult family meetings. I smiled despite myself. That would be nice, I replied. Nothing fancy. Love you. Love you too, she texted back. And Sarah? Thank you for the money, but I'm putting it aside for now. It doesn't feel right keeping it when your sister is in trouble. My heart sank. So Elaine had already spoken to Mom, likely spinning some version of events that cast herself as the victim and me as the heartless sister with money to spare but no compassion. We'll talk about it this afternoon, I promised. Just hold on to it for now. At 3:30, I left my apartment and drove to Mom's house in the suburbs. The familiar streets brought back a flood of memories. Riding bikes with Elaine before our relationship grew complicated, Dad teaching us to drive in the high school parking lot, family barbecues in the backyard. Mom's driveway already held 2 cars when I arrived, her sensible Honda and Elaine's aging BMW, a 16th birthday present from Dad that she somehow kept running despite constant financial emergencies. I parked and took a deep breath, preparing myself for whatever theatrics awaited inside. As I approached the front door, I could hear raised voices from within. I rang the doorbell instead of using my key, feeling strangely formal. Mom opened the door, her face tight with worry. "Oh, Sarah, thank goodness you're here." I stepped inside to find Elaine and Greg standing in the living room. Greg looked exactly as I remembered from our few previous meetings. Tall, artificially tanned, with the kind of good looks that fade poorly. His expensive watch and designer jeans contrasted sharply with Elaine's claims of financial distress. "Sarah," Elaine said coolly, "you're late." I checked my watch. "It's 3:57. "We've been waiting," she insisted, as though those 3 minutes were further evidence of my failings. "I'm here now," I said, turning to Greg. "Nice to see you again." He nodded without quite meeting my eyes. "Yeah, you too." Mom gestured to the dining room table, where she'd set out coffee and a plate of chocolate chip cookies, comfort food for uncomfortable conversations. "Let's sit," she suggested. "I think we have a lot to discuss." We arranged ourselves around the table, the seating falling into old patterns, Mom at the head, Elaine and I on opposite sides, Greg awkwardly positioned beside Elaine. "So," Mom began once we were settled, "Elaine tells me you two are having some financial difficulties." Elaine shot me a look. "Sarah's making it into a bigger deal than it is. We just need a temporary loan to get our business started." "What business?" Mom asked, genuinely curious. "You hadn't mentioned starting a business." "A design build firm," Greg supplied smoothly. "High-end renovations for discerning clients." "With what experience?" I couldn't help asking. "Greg, what's your background in construction or design?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I've done plenty of projects. Flipped a house with my buddy last year." "Which house?" I asked. "You wouldn't know it," he said dismissively. "It was out in Henderson County." I made a mental note to check property records later. Henderson County was largely rural farmland. House flipping there seemed unlikely. "The point is," Elaine cut in, "we have a solid business plan. We just need startup capital." "For $38,000, Mom asked, her eyebrows raising. "That seems like quite a lot to start." "Quality materials aren't cheap," Greg explained with practiced smoothness, "and we want to do things right from the beginning." "I thought you said you were in trouble with dangerous people," I reminded Elaine, "that you owed $22,000 to Greg's cousin Tony." Mom's face drained of color. "Dangerous people? What is she talking about, Elaine?" Elaine glared at me. "I was trying to spare you the details, Mom. By lying about a renovation I never asked for?" Mom shook her head. "Or was that after you lied about me needing knee surgery?" "You told her about that?" Elaine turned on me, her voice rising. "I asked her directly," I replied calmly. "Because that's what adults do when they need information. They ask instead of making up stories." Greg placed a restraining hand on Elaine's arm as she began to respond. "Look," he said, "the situation isn't ideal. I made some investments that didn't pan out. My cousin helped us cover some expenses, and now we need to pay him back. It's not complicated." "Is he really dangerous?" Mom asked worriedly. Greg hesitated, then admitted. "He's not exactly a bank, but he's family. He's giving us time." "So there's no immediate threat," I clarified, looking directly at Elaine. "No serious people coming to collect today." Elaine's gaze dropped to the table. I might have exaggerated the timeline. "Exaggerated," I repeated. "Like you exaggerated about Mom's kitchen and her knee surgery." Mom reached for a cookie, her hand trembling slightly. I think what Sarah is trying to understand, what we're all trying to understand, is why you couldn't just be honest from the beginning, Elaine. Elaine's expression hardened. Because she never listens when I am honest. Every time I've needed help, there's a lecture about responsibility and planning and budgeting. Like I'm a child who can't manage money. Can you? I asked simply. That's not fair, she shot back. Isn't it? I pushed. You're asking for tens of thousands of dollars while wearing designer clothes and driving a car you can barely afford to maintain. Greg has a watch that costs more than most people's monthly rent. Where does the money go, Elaine? Not all of us want to live like monks, Sarah, she snapped. Some of us enjoy nice things. Nice things you can't afford, I pointed out. Girls, Mom interjected, her voice carrying the same tone she'd used when we argued as teenagers. This isn't productive. Greg cleared his throat. Look, the business is legitimate. We have plans, sketches, a supplier ready to work with us. This isn't a scam. Then why lie? I asked him directly. Why not present it honestly as a business proposal? He exchanged a look with Elaine before answering. We tried that approach with other potential investors. No one took us seriously, because neither of you has experience in construction or design, I pointed out. Because Greg's employment history is spotty at best, and Elaine changes careers every 8 months. Because you have no business plan, no prototypes, no proof of concept. You're just like all the others, Elaine said bitterly. You think we're jokes. I think you're approaching this all wrong, I corrected. Starting a business isn't about finding someone to hand you startup cash based on nothing but your enthusiasm. It's about building credibility, demonstrating skills, showing proof that your idea has merit. Mom nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense to me. Your father didn't start his accounting practice overnight. He worked for others for years, built relationships, proved himself. We don't have years, Greg said, an edge of desperation in his voice. We need capital now. To pay back your cousin, I surmised. How much do you really owe him? Greg and Elaine exchanged another look. $17,500, he finally admitted, plus interest. And how much of the $38,000 renovation estimate was actually needed for materials and labor? I pressed. About half, he mumbled. The rest was cushion. Profit, I corrected, built on a lie about Mom's needs. Elaine pushed back from the table. This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you the truth. You're sitting there judging us like you've never made a mistake. I've made plenty, I assured her. The difference is I don't expect others to pay for them, and I certainly don't lie to family to cover them up. Enough, Mom said firmly, surprising all of us with her tone. Elaine, Greg, I love you both. But Sarah is right. This wasn't honest, and it wasn't fair. To her or to me. Mom, Elaine began, but Mom held up a hand. Let me finish. I understand you're in trouble. I understand you need help. But using me as leverage, making up stories about my health and my home, that crosses a line. I'd never heard Mom speak so directly to Elaine. Usually, she cushioned her criticisms, made excuses, tried to keep the peace at all costs. We were desperate, Elaine said, her voice small. We still are. Mom turned to me. Sarah, you sent me money this morning, a substantial amount. I nodded. I wanted you to have a safety net. Could some of that money help Elaine and Greg resolve their immediate problem? Mom asked. Not the full $1,700, but perhaps enough to negotiate with Greg's cousin? I considered this. The money was meant for Mom's security, not to bail out Elaine and Greg's poor decisions. But if it could resolve the situation and prevent further manipulation, I could consider it, I said carefully. Under certain conditions. Elaine's head snapped up, hope flashing in her eyes. What conditions? First, Complete honesty from now on. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more using Mom as leverage. She nodded quickly. Of course. Second, you both get financial counseling. Professional help managing your money and planning for the future. Greg frowned at this, but Elaine nodded again. We can do that. Third, if you're serious about starting a business, you do it properly. Work in the industry first, learn the skills, save startup capital, create a real business plan. That could take years, Greg protested. Yes, I agreed. Most successful businesses do. And fourth, I continued, you pay back whatever we give you on a fixed schedule with documentation. This isn't a gift. It's a structured loan with consequences if you default. Elaine and Greg exchanged glances. What kind of consequences? She asked warily. Legal ones, I said firmly. We draw up paperwork with my company's attorney. If you default, we can pursue collections, just like any other lender would. You'd sue your own sister? Elaine asked, incredulous. I'd hold my sister to the same standards as anyone else, I corrected. Because that's what respecting someone looks like. It means believing they're capable of keeping their commitments. Mom reached over to squeeze my hand, a gesture of support that meant more than she could know. Greg leaned toward Elaine, whispering something in her ear. She nodded slowly before addressing me. How much? I'll contribute $10,000, I said. You'll need to come up with the rest elsewhere. Perhaps by selling some of those nice things you enjoy so much. Greg's face darkened, but Elaine placed a restraining hand on his arm this time. We accept, she said, her voice subdued. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, I warned. I'm serious about the conditions. All of them. I know you are, she said. And I'm sorry. About the lies. About trying to use Mom. I searched her face for signs of insincerity, but found only exhaustion and what appeared to be genuine remorse. Elaine had always been convincing. It was her greatest talent and most dangerous trait, but perhaps this time was different. I'll have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow, I said. Once it's signed, I'll transfer the funds. Greg stood abruptly. I need some air. He stalked out to the backyard, leaving an awkward silence in his wake. He'll come around, Elaine said unconvincingly. This isn't how he expected things to go. You mean he didn't expect to be held accountable? I translated. Mom sighed deeply. Girls, please. We've made progress here. Let's not undo it with more fighting. She was right, of course. This fragile truce was better than open warfare, even if it came with strict conditions and lingering resentment. I should get going, I said, standing. I have work to finish before tomorrow. Always working, Elaine muttered, but there was less venom in it now. Mom walked me to the door, stepping outside with me for a moment of privacy. Thank you, she said simply. Not just for the money, but for standing firm. I've enabled her for too long, making excuses, hoping she'd grow out of it. We all have, I acknowledged. It was easier than confrontation. Mom nodded sadly. Your father would be proud of you. He always said you had his backbone. The mention of Dad brought a lump to my throat. He'd been gone 3 years, but moments like this made the loss feel fresh. I miss him, I said quietly. Every day, Mom agreed. He would have seen through this renovation scheme in seconds. I laughed despite myself, and called it grade A horse hockey, no doubt. His favorite phrase for Elaine's more creative stories. Mom smiled. Listen, about the money you sent me this morning. It's yours, I insisted. Keep it for emergencies, for travel, for whatever makes you happy. I'll keep some, she promised. But I want to contribute to Elaine's loan too. Not because I approve of how she handled this, but because I want her to know we're both invested in her future, contingent on her making better choices. I considered arguing, but recognized the determination in Mom's eyes. This wasn't just about money, It was about Mom reclaiming her role as a parent, not a piggy bank or a pawn. "We'll figure it out tomorrow," I said, hugging her tightly. Together. Driving home, I felt lighter than I had in years. The confrontation had been painful but necessary, like lancing a wound that had festered too long. There would be more difficult conversations ahead, more boundaries to establish and maintain. Elaine might backslide, Greg might bail entirely. The loan might never be repaid. But for the first time, I'd broken our toxic family pattern. I'd refused to be manipulated, refused to enable, refused to sacrifice my financial security on the altar of false family harmony. And surprisingly, the world hadn't ended. Mom still loved me. Elaine was angry, but dealing with reality perhaps for the first time in her adult life. My phone buzzed with a text as I pulled into my parking garage. From Elaine. "I know you probably don't believe me, but I am sorry. For the lies. For trying to use Mom. For everything. I do want to change. I just don't know how." I sat with the message for a long moment before responding. "It starts with honesty. Today was a good first step. Tomorrow will take another." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Not just for Elaine, but for all of us. A chance to build something healthier from the ashes of old patterns and toxic expectations. A chance to be a real family, not just people connected by obligation and manipulation. As I stepped into my apartment, I realized I was smiling. The $38,000 renovation that never was had become something far more valuable. A renovation of our family dynamics, a tearing down of old structures to build something new and stronger in their place. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be perfect. But for the first time in years, it felt possible. And that was worth more than any amount of money Elaine could have demanded from me across that restaurant table.